Hey there, Derek Rydall here, founder of the Law of Emergence and author of the best-selling books Emergence and the Abundance Project. And really, part of my mission is to help support and develop the next generation of real thought leaders and influencers and change makers who can really be the change that they want to see in the world and that we want to see in the world. And that's why I want to talk today about speaking truth when truth-telling is dangerous. And we are in a very, very interesting, very fragile, and even delicate, and I will even say dangerous time. And I'm going to try to parse through some of these thoughts and ideas. This is not a typical sermon or speech or talk. I did a recent one, something about when the world's gone mad, that should be on my page somewhere, a training and a Q&A last week. And this is sort of an ongoing series of conversations about making sense of a world gone mad and making sense of what's really going on. Because it's what I see happening on all sides of all conversations is, first of all, everybody taking sides. And second of all, very little real conversation, very little real communication, and a lot of scared, largely ignorant, unconscious or unconsciously reactionary individuals. And that's not a judgment. I think any sane, intellectually honest person looking at the current level of dialogue and conversation out there would agree. But I want to make sure that we also look at the one and only place we really have power over, and that is at ourselves. Because we are part of the problem if we are operating in some of the ways I'm going to talk about today. And my work is not just to comfort the afflicted, it is to afflict the comfortable, but for the purpose of greater unity, of greater self-awareness, of greater self-love, of ultimately greater understanding of ourself, so we can have a clearer inner standing in our truth, and then we can take a more powerful outer stance in a way that truly serves a world that works for all. And what's going on right now is almost entirely not that. And I include in that the conversation about Black Lives Matter, just like I talked about it to some extent when the Me Too movement happened. And I include in that the conversations around what's happening around COVID and the quarantine. And it's such a third rail, hotline, dangerous topic that people are afraid to speak honestly and authentically, and instead resort to reactionary, to pointing fingers, or to taking angry stances on either side. And what's happening is the ego is snatching what could be an opportunity for greater unity and very cleverly turning it into yet more divisiveness, more polarization. Just in the example of Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, which are absolutely saying the same thing fundamentally. All lives matter means all lives. But the ego and our current climate has weaponized language, weaponized it for political purposes on both sides, so that all lives matter is being used to attack because they feel judged and now they're in a defensive posture. And Black Lives Matter feels unlistened to, unheard, and has a need to, again, attack. But it's very important if we want to create a world that really works, a world where we don't create more polarization. We have to notice and see what's really going on. And that just like the Me Too movement, what starts out as a valid and necessary and very important conversation, it's absolutely true that there is systemic racism, that there is from slavery to the once slavery was eradicated to actually it became institutionalized with the peonage and the, if that's the right word, how you say it, where basically you could just become if you got arrested, you could be just sold back to slave owners as in a legal way. I mean, And then, black codes and redlining and on and on and on. We must be able to talk about the systemic racism that is real. But that's not the whole conversation. We must be able to talk about police brutality and again, systemic problems in policing. But that's not the whole conversation. The whole conversation has to include facts, actual facts, even if they're uncomfortable. Like that police violence is statistically better than it's ever been, meaning it's down, meaning we have less violence than we've ever had. We have to include facts that while there is terrible systemic racism, the actual opportunities and the growth and the progress is phenomenal. What we've done as a country from slavery to this is miraculous. From the level of police brutality to where we actually are statistically is phenomenal, right? It's like, remember the days when we used to have such bad smog that we'd have to have smog alerts? And we talk about pollution today as if it's just as bad. And this is where we're losing our grip and our ability to hold two seeming polarities or seeming ideas that don't match in our mind at the same time, which is actually a high state. Confusion with fusion, two ideas that seem to be contradictory. That's actually a path of mastery. We have to be able to see that racism is actually much, much less than it's ever been, ever, and it's gotten better across so many numbers, and it's still a really big deal. And a lot of individuals are suffering tremendously in very subtle ways, but not so subtle if you're one of them, where you walk down the street and you have to keep your hands in your pocket as an African-American individual so that people don't think, you're going to pull out a weapon, or you have to take your hands out of your pocket so they don't think you have a weapon, or you need to smile and act overly nice so that they know you're a good person. All of this stuff is systemic, and we have to be able to deal with it. But I can tell you that dealing with it by creating an enemy with police, creating ridiculous memes and ideas like abolish the police. What do we want to have, the purge? and it's just nonsense, because it's never going to happen. And it's important to see where a really important conversation has been snatched by the ego, snatched by the root cause, which is creating us against them, me against you, good against evil. And then it gets weaponized, and then it actually freezes out real nuance, real conversation. And then down the line, the real issue is not solved completely. The root of the weed is not pulled up. And then it just goes underground, and it becomes more infiltrated. The Me Too movement becomes now toxic masculinity, and men feeling more shame and more broken down and more misunderstood, then react in passive aggressive ways or overtly aggressive ways. And again, the problem will re-erupt in other ways. The same thing with the current climate with the racism, where now police don't even want to be police anymore. Good men and women don't want to even be in the job anymore. There's all kinds of other systemic problems we create when we lose our ability to speak honestly and truthfully, and to listen and hold each other in an honest conversation where we disagree. Because there's a bigger truth. The truth is not just cops are bad and white people should be ashamed and guilty, or all black people are treated terribly and racism is as bad as it's ever been and there's no way to succeed as a black person or as a woman or whatever. And if we can't bring both of these pieces together, that we can talk about a conversation and also talk about personal responsibility, that we can talk about where women are mistreated and abused and there's sexual harassment, and also talk about the difficulty and the ignorance and the lack of training and development for young men growing up in a society where they're pretty much labeled as bad guys from day one. and something to be scared of. If we can't talk about that men commit more suicide, more men are in prison, more men kill themselves in jobs or in war, or just because they're so miserable, on and on and on. If we can't hold both sides, then at the end of the day, all we have to resort to is more force, more punitive measures, more shaming and blaming and attacking each other, and ultimately shaming and blaming or repressing parts of ourselves. And the result will be more trauma down the line. The result will be, even if we put in more rules, the actual consciousness has not changed, because the conversation that converts, the conversation where the left and the right sides of our mind and of our hearts, you notice there's a left and a right to the mind and the heart? You notice there's a left and a right wing? Now, how is your heart going to do just only taking a stand on the left side or just the right side? How about just using your left brain only or just using your right brain only? How about a bird trying to fly with just a left wing or just a right wing? You know what you have? A crippled bird who can't get off the ground. You know what we have right now in our society? A crippling lack of an ability to have real conscious conversation. The left wing is not right, and it's not entirely wrong, and the right wing is not right, and it's not entirely wrong. Both hold one of the wings that's going to let us fly if we can stand in the middle. Black lives matter, all lives matter. Both have a point. Talking about personal responsibility and talking about public responsibility. Both are true. Talking about the fact that racism is still a problem and that it's better than ever. Both true. Talking about the fact that women's rights and men treating women in a certain way is a real problem and that it's also better than ever is both true. And that we also need to talk about men and men's fears and men's suffering. Talking about the fact that there are victims and also talking about the fact that the victim mindset and mentality is being weaponized and politicized to gain more power are both true. And we need to grow up in our ability to recognize that we are running around with childhood wounds and shadows, and we are acting out, and we're using each other, and we're using politics and media and social media as a proxy to fight a battle out there that is really a battle raging in here. And for those of you that want to be thought leaders and change makers and healers and a light in the world, you must, now more than ever, be vigilant about your own mind and heart. Be vigilant about what's going on in you, because you're not in the world is in you. The relationships are in you. The battle is in you. And the only place to win the war and win the argument is in you. And then you can hold the different perspectives and polarities because you have learned to hold them in the only place you have power, which is in you. The racism, the bigotry, the victimhood, the irresponsibility, the greediness, the neediness, the selfishness is not out there. It's in here, and it's in here. And that's the only place we can resolve it. And then we need to practice fundamental, basic things. Freedom of speech, the maturity and the patience to really listen to things we don't agree with, but to seek understanding. Not to be listening, just coiling ourselves up, waiting to attack, waiting to defend, waiting to prove our point. And you guys, and you men and women, you know what I'm talking about in relationships, right? This is not just about out in the world. This is in our families. This is in our marriages. This is in our partnerships. Are you listening to understand? And to actually understand their map of reality so that you can expand your own territory? Or are you listening for how you can make a case that you win? How much of that is what's happening out there? And this goes, by the way, with all of the things we're dealing with. All of the conspiracy theories flying around COVID and around pedophile rings and around the president and around just so much craziness and so little thoughtfulness. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. I'm going to rebel and not wear a mask because I have my rights. Okay, let's take a moment and think that through. Yes, you have your rights, but remember the freedom, the democratic way is as long as it doesn't impinge upon the rights of others. That's why smoking in public places has been largely outlawed. That's why you can't just drive freely down the highway as if you have your rights to drive freely and drive drunk or drive whatever. You have to think. It's not just about you. It's not just I. It also is we. And it's not just we. There's no we unless it includes I. We must have sovereignty and divine sovereign authenticity and expression and truth. But your sovereign expression and truth ain't the whole truth if it doesn't include unity in partnership with others. And it's not the whole truth if it doesn't include community. Sovereignty and unity and community. These are three dimensions of the truth. And if all three aren't included, you're not telling the truth or living the truth. But if you're not able to explore all three, you're never going to get to the truth. And we, as a community of black and white and straight and gay and men and women and trans and bi and all of our diversity, will never become an ecosystem of real humanity until we grow the F up and stop fighting like children. Stop acting out like children and then looking for some parent figure to affirm or confirm us. It's time that we get understanding so we can have a strong inner standing. So we can now take a healthy and clear outer standing. The greatest leaders and lights of the world were outstanding because they first found and sought understanding. Above the oracle of Delphi, the great oracle of all knowledge, it does not say, prove your point, make them wrong, white pride or white shame, Black Lives Matter or all lives matter. It says, know thyself. Know thyself. Men are bad, women are bad. Nope, it's nowhere on the wall. It's nowhere in Plato's cave. It's nowhere on the Oracle of Delphi. It's nowhere in the great teachings of history, if you study them beneath the dogma and the doctrine. It says fundamentally, know yourself. Get very intimate with who you really are. What's really running you? You don't have free will until you have expanded awareness of what's running you. And there's some pretty gnarly shit running us, folks. There's some pretty dark shadow patterns of separation, lack, limitation, worry, doubt, fear, good and evil, us and them, and it's unconscious. But every way that you're being triggered right now, whether it's to push or to withdraw, whether it's to act or attack, shame, judge, or withdraw and hide, whatever pushes or pulls you is a projection of an unhealed part of you that is trying to get your attention, trying to be held and to be heard and to be loved and to be understood so you can finally meet that true need within you. And everything happening on the screen of our experience is giving us an opportunity to discover that. To discover our real circle of influence, which is first and foremost over ourselves. Where are you coming from? Where are you coming from? Are you seeing bad people? Are you in an argument out there? Are you judging, shaming, attacking, blaming, making somebody right, or taking a self-righteous stand? Are you absolutely certain you're seeing clearly? Are you absolutely certain you even know what you're seeing? Are you absolutely certain that you are telling the truth? Because if you're not, don't say you are. If you're not, it's time to get off our high horse and get off our soapbox and get humble. Because here's the facts. Most of us don't have a frickin' clue what's going on. That's the truth. And it's also important to know that the truth is never going to be found out there. It can only be found inside. So we have to get humble, folks. We have to get humble. We have to stop passing around all these memes with all these facts as if this is the truth. This is what the CDC did and the WHO did and the president did, or this is what they did or they did, and these are the absolute facts. And then, a month or two later, we realized that was just some meme created by somebody, brilliantly propagandized and weaponized to grab your attention and grab your emotion, and it was all bullshit. There's a lot of that floating around right now. And a lot of you are unwittingly or maybe wittingly perpetuating it. Okay? And I told you, I love you, but I'm going to speak plainly to you. Don't pass anything around unless you've done the research and you have absolutely provable facts, or preface it with, I heard this, I researched this, this feels like there's something to it, but I don't really know. What do you guys think? And please don't just attack or blame or shame. I'm actually trying to get to the bottom of things. I'm trying to be responsible with information. I'm trying to not perpetuate this politicized, polarized, weaponized communication reality we're living in. So I'm going to share this little piece, but let's have a conversation. What a novel concept. Instead of, this is the truth, watch this video, read this article, Bill Gates is the devil, this is happening. No, you guys, you don't know that. I don't care how many secret spies you are supposedly in contact with. I really mean that. And if you're getting that information from somebody else, it's incumbent upon you. If you want to be a real change maker, if you want to be a real healing influence, if you want to be a real light in the world, don't perpetuate propaganda. Don't perpetuate something that is really just an emotional reaction. Think deeply. Slow down. Take a breath. Take a pause. No action, if it's coming from a reaction, is better. Silence is not violence. If speaking is coming from trauma and pain and reaction, that's violence. Violence is the voice of the inarticulate. Violence is the voice of the confused and the traumatized. Hurt people hurt people. So if you're hurting, the way you should share, and I am shoulding, is vulnerably, is humbly, is opening your heart, not bringing something to bludgeon people with, because otherwise you are a hurt person that's going to hurt people. You're a traumatized person that's going to re-traumatize people. And again, it's a part of you that needs the attention. And there are people in places that are doing great work, that are holding people, to let them have their feelings, to let them discover what's going on for them, to let them really heal. So we don't perpetuate this violence, so that we take violence out of circulation. That's what Jesus was trying to get at when he said, love your enemy, and that the enemy is in your own household. He's trying to take violence out of circulation when he said, resist not evil. Because he understood there was no actual force called evil. Evil is lived backwards. Evil is actually the collective belief of separation, of good and bad, of duality, that has become so nourished and fed by our fear and our consciousness that it's taken on what appears to be a life. But the only way that's going to stop is not by fighting evil, which just feeds it, but by starving it. by meeting all the evil parts and places within us, the scary, sinful, ugly, rejected, unlovable parts, and meeting them with love, compassion, understanding, and seeking to meet their true needs. Then we can do the same in the world. This is what Martin Luther King taught. This is what Gandhi taught. This is what Mother Teresa taught. This is what Jesus and Buddha and truly any great leader, thought leader, change maker has endeavored to do. And now more than ever, this is what we need more of. And so this is my call to you to wake up. I don't mean become woke. I mean really wake up. Wake up to yourself. Take more time to be with yourself. Know thyself. Understand the war and the conflict in you and resolve it there first. And it doesn't mean you can't take action, but if you are endeavoring to do that work, your action will be more inspired action. Your action will carry more compassion. It'll carry more light, and it actually might just make a difference. As Gandhi said, we must be the change we want to see. And if we want a world of love and harmony and unity, we can't be operating from fear and separation and polarization and us versus them. You'll never ever create the world from that. So I hope this has been helpful. Maybe it's a little bit provocative. There's a lot more I know I wanted to say, but I think I've said enough for today. And I encourage you, if you want some support around embracing your shadows and things like that, you can go to my website, DerekRydall.com, go into the free resources, and there's an audio where you can download the shadow process. And a shadow is just any judgment you have about anybody or yourself. Needy, greedy, selfish, ugly, stupid, unconscious, unspiritual, racist, perpetrator, murderer, victim. These are all judgments. And if they trigger you and you embrace those within you and do the process, you heal that fragment of your own heart and of your own consciousness. You become more whole. You become more compassionate. You fall more in love with yourself. You activate and get access to more of yourself, and you're able to hold others more and be actually a beneficial presence in the world that doesn't bring more noise, but brings more silence, brings more peace, brings more unification. So check that out, okay? And leave your comments here. Share with me and in fact, I can even maybe just go on for a moment if there's any burning comments, but leave your comments here and share what this is triggering in you or what it's inspiring in you. What's your biggest takeaway from this? So that others that read through the comments can see, oh, he's talking about that, and then they'll listen. Because we need more people to listen. If you agree with what I'm saying, or at least you agree with the essence of it. Because I'm not saying that everything I'm saying is true or right. But if you resonate with it, then post what is it about you resonate. So that more people that resonate can hear this and they can get the help they need and the clarity they need. And we can one by one and two by two begin to take the violence out of circulation. Begin to put our attention on ourselves. Begin to heal our own hearts and minds. It doesn't take millions and millions of people to make a massive difference. It just takes a small group who have decided to come into agreement within themselves, into alignment and at peace within themselves. And that frequency, 10 holy men or women can change a whole city. As it says in the Bible, 10 righteous men. So righteousness really means the right use and the right understanding of these principles and of ourself. So post here, what is your biggest takeaway or trigger or question or pushback or feedback? Because I'll be reading it, I'll be commenting, and I'll be doing more of these. And just know that I love you and appreciate you wherever you are in this conversation. And until next time, remember to live authentically, love unconditionally, and follow your destiny. Take care.